Hello, Neo Kids adventurers. Are you ready for a series of amazing story? Meet Baby Thomas, the boy who will change the world. Imagine a little baby who's born on a chilly night, right when the leaves have fallen and winter is just around the corner. His name is Thomas, and even though he's small, his story is going to be big. Thomas isn't just any baby. He's going to grow up to be a genius, the kind of person who might invent amazing things or solve big problems. Thomas is born to two loving parents who are both teachers. They know how important learning is, and they've always dreamed of having a smart and curious child. But they have no idea just how special Thomas is going to be. In this story, you'll follow Thomas from the day he's born. You'll see the first time he shows how clever he is, and you'll join him on his adventures as he learns new things, discovers the world around him, and starts to do things that no one else can. If you love stories about smart kids, big dreams, and exciting surprises, then you won't want to miss a single episode of Thomas's journey. Get ready to meet the boy who might just change the world, one brilliant idea at a time. Episode 1. A Special Arrival, a Cozy Home. It was a chilly evening in late November. The leaves had fallen from the trees, and the air was cold. In a small, warm house on Maple Avenue, a special feeling filled the air. This house belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Walker, who were both teachers. They were waiting for something wonderful to happen. The Walkers. Mr. Walker taught high school math, and Mrs. Walker taught young children at an elementary school. They were kind and smart, always helping their students. But tonight, they weren't thinking about school. Mrs. Walker was sitting in a comfy chair, her hands on her big belly. Their baby was going to be born soon. Wondering about the baby. As they sat by the warm fireplace, Mrs. Walker looked at Mr. Walker and asked, "What do you think our baby will be like?" Mr. Walker smiled and said, "I think he'll be like you, kind, patient, and very wise." Mrs. Walker laughed and said, "And I hope he loves learning like you. Maybe he'll be a little genius." A sudden pain. Suddenly, Mrs. Walker felt a sharp pain in her belly. She grabbed the arm of her chair, her face showing she was hurting. Mr. Walker quickly came to her side and asked, "Is it time?" Mrs. Walker nodded and said, "Yes, I think our baby is coming." Off to the hospital, Mr. Walker grabbed the bag they had packed for the hospital. They hurried to the car and drove to the hospital. The drive felt long, but soon they arrived. The nurses helped Mrs. Walker get ready to have the baby. Mr. Walker stayed by her side, holding her hand and telling her everything would be okay. The baby is born. After hours of waiting, the moment finally came. The doctor smiled and said, "He's here." A tiny baby boy was born, crying and wriggling. The doctor gently placed the baby in Mrs. Walker's arms. She looked at her son with tears of happiness in her eyes. Mr. Walker leaned in close, also full of joy. Naming the baby Mr. and Mrs. Walker looked at their baby and knew he was special. "What should we name him?" Mrs. Walker asked. Mr. Walker thought for a moment and said, "How about Thomas? Like Thomas Edison, the great inventor." Mrs. Walker smiled and agreed. Thomas Walker, our little genius. As they held baby Thomas, they felt so much love. They didn't know it yet, but Thomas was going to grow up to do amazing things. To be continued. In the next episode, we'll see the first signs that Thomas is not just an ordinary baby. What will his parents notice first? Don't miss it. If you think you like our video story for today, please subscribe to our channel, like, share, and click the notification button to be updated for more video updates in the future. Thank you for watching. Until then, see you next time.